You're smart, you're motivated, you want to do something big. You're on the verge of being a young boss, and we're going to help you get there. I'm your host, Isabel Garino, and welcome to the Young Boss Podcast, where youth is your power. Are you a rule follower? This week, we're talking about financial fitness, everyone's second least favorite type of fitness. We'll talk about how birth order affects your spending habits, why rule followers make the best accountants and CFOs, and why making changes to your budget that matters. We're starting our 3-part series with subject matter experts, beginning with my sister and rock star CFO, Victoria Fitzpatrick. Let's dive in. Victoria, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what got you started in the world of finance.
Yes. So I originally started as an elementary school teacher, got my master's in education, and was happily working. When I had my second child, my dad called up and said, I could really use some more help around the office. Yeah. So no problem, helped out with that a little bit. And I slowly morphed into this role of bookkeeper, tax prep, just a lot of regular office work. And then slowly he would trust me with more and more. But when he passed away, I was thrust into the world of finance. He had a CFP. I had to take over a lot of that, both professionally and personally. Yeah. So when somebody dies, you have to do a lot of things with insurance and estate planning and all legal finance things. And I found out that I loved it. So I then started doing more formal education. And I've now gotten I'm working on my Series 65 license. I've got a certificate in financial planning, and then I'm going to start working on my certificate in accounting.
Very cool. When someone is starting their business, what should they know about budgeting or setting those financial goals in the beginning?
You hit the nail on the head. Budget is super important. So when you start your business, you need to have a plan, a business plan. You kind of have to make sure that it's viable financially before you get started. So you need to figure out how much it's going to cost you to operate, how much capital you're going to need to get started, and then kind of how much you're going to need to sell or make to keep going and decide if it's worth it. So you have to set a budget, and then you can go from there.
How does someone know what is normal for each of the categories? Like all the people listening, they have different types of businesses, but I know we've even asked that question, like, what is normal to go into marketing as far as percentages or something like that?
Yes. Normal is very industry specific. So I would say Google is your best friend to figure out what's normal for your industry. But there are some general things. You're going to have general expenses. Usually your operating budget is broken into those areas that you just said: marketing, advertising, paying your staff. So you try to keep your staff around 25% of your budget for expenses. Okay. And then that kind of leaves you the rest to play with. And depending on what type of business you have, you may need more or less in different areas.
Okay. How does a business owner know when it's time to hire like a CFO or someone to help them with finances? When is that point where it's like, you're probably doing too much?
I think part is just understanding yourself and knowing what you're good at and using your time wisely. I think your most important person is your CPA, your regular tax accountant. You can lean on them for a lot. You can have free meetings with them throughout the year to get you on track or keep you on track. But if you're recognizing that it's not something that you like to do or not something you're good at, and they're not able to help you, then maybe it is time to seek some sort of financial help. And it could be as simple as a book. It could be attending a seminar. It could be just having a conversation with somebody to get some advice, but maybe it is hiring a fractional CFO or a part-time bookkeeper.
Yeah. I think that those, for most of my business owner friends, that's the minimum that they have, if not more than that, because it is so important to really, if that is not your skill set, don't waste your time there.
Yep.
Outsource it. Get the right person in the right seat. For established business owners, when they start making profit, is there any kind of reinvestment strategy that they should be looking at? Or is it like, woohoo, we're now, making money, we can go spend it all? What structure should be formed around that?
I think that business owners should be actively saving and working towards keeping some sort of profit to be able to reinvest. Hopefully they have a vision for where they want to go in the future, and this they're able to use to hit those goals and make that big move with this extra money that they have. I think reinvesting it, some people call it research and development, but it's not necessarily that. It's expansion, and it's what else do you want to do? And maybe that can help you launch your next product or expand into a new market. But having that reserve saved up is a great benefit. And, no one's going to be mad about a little extra profit at the end of the year, but having a plan for it is important because you don't want to be stuck with that big tax liability either.
How many months of savings should a business owner try to have?
3 to 6 months.
Saved up?
Yes.
At all times?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot, but it's good for people to know because I do think that sometimes they're unaware when they're starting a business of how much is this going to cost me? And then, well, if we're going month to month, it's scary to think what happens if I don't get clients that month? What happens if my Facebook ads break or whatever the case is? Yeah,
you have to go quarter by quarter and you're making changes throughout, but you might not see those results for a little while. So you have to have those reserves to count on just in case it doesn't work. You have to keep your staff. You can't just fire everyone and shut your doors because it's not working. You have to keep going. So having at least a quarter's worth really gets you through that hump and those different business cycles.
I know we have used a system called Profit First in the past. And a lot of business owners, when I talk to them, they're paying out staff, they're paying all their bills and everything that they need to, and they don't pay themselves. They pay themselves last. And we were doing that for a long time, and we stumbled into the system Profit First. Tell us a little bit about that system and how our listeners can take advantage of it.
Yes. So Profit First is a system. There's a book on it written by Mike Michalowicz, and they teach that it's basically that Dave Ramsey envelope style. You get a bunch of different bank accounts and you partition off your money each month. So Profit First, instead of waiting to see what's left over as your profit, you set aside that money at the beginning. And there's different percentages. So it also depends on your industry and how much gross income you have for your business based on which percentages get weighed more or less. But typically overall, you take 10% of your profit, you put that into a savings account first, and you don't touch it. You guarantee that you have profit. Then you're supposed to set aside about 15% just for taxes because you don't know what's going to happen. You want to be prepared with that big bill. Just set it aside and you know that it's there if and when you need it. The next category would be owner's pay. So that's you're paying yourself. You can't, as hard as it is, you have to pay yourself for all the work that you're doing. And it might not be a whole lot at the beginning, but you have to guarantee that you can do that. So take another 10%, pay yourself. Then that leaves about 65% that you have for all of your expenses. So we had just mentioned earlier, you're spending of that 65, 25% of it goes towards staffing, and the other 40% goes towards all your other general expenses.
Okay. I think that's a really good tool that people can use because it is so scary in the beginning. You start making money and you think, let me just throw it all back into the business, or let me not pay myself. Let me just take what I need to survive. And it is important to pay yourself so that you want to stay doing this longer, right? Because a lot of people will quit when they are like, hey, I've been doing this for 3 years and I'm not actually making any money. Well, you could be.
Exactly. It forces you. It forces you to save, and it forces you to stay in your budget because you only have that much left in your account.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned 15% for taxes, right?
Yes.
The bane of every business owner's existence, right? What does that look like? Should business owners be paying quarterly? Should they? I know you're not a tax professional, but from your experience, quarterly, wait till the end of the year, how should they be structuring them?
Well, I think taxes are, the famous quote that, nothing is certain in life but death and taxes, or however that quote is. We should probably look that up. But it's true. But taxes is not something that has to be negative. It's something that we all have to deal with. And it's an everyday thing. It's not just once a year on April 14th, the day before taxes are due, oh no, now I have to figure it out. It's something that you're consciously preparing for and organizing all throughout your year. So every time that you're paying an employee, part of that is paying some taxes, income taxes. As a business, Usually you make quarterly payments towards your gross income. And then at the end of the year, you have your final return. Depending on your structure, if you are a business entity like an S Corp, you would file your taxes in March, but then all of that tax liability, any payment that is due, actually goes to the shareholders, which isn't paid until on their personal returns until April. So you have to figure it out and do the math and do the calculations throughout the year, but the actual payments aren't usually due until quarterly, and then you have one big one each April.
For business owners listening, they should just go to a tax professional who can help them with this, help them get it all set up, because also there's different ways to structure it if they're an LLC, if they are an S Corp, and knowing how to structure themselves versus the business, because those can also be set up differently. Any tips on that or recommendations of people or companies to go to?
Yes. A CPA is really great at doing the number crunching and figuring out the exact what you owe and trying to protect you from any red flags that the IRS might be after. But there are other people that might have more insight. Financial planners, for example, they cover 5 areas. They talk about insurance, they talk about retirement and estate planning, risk management, saving up for all your investments and things like that, and then estate planning. So there's other professionals out there who cover the whole gambit of financial advice, and you can take what they tell you, their strategies, and then go to your CPA to actually apply them. Sometimes your CPA might not know what that person was trying to explain, and you might have to teach your accountant, this is the strategy that I'm trying to do. This is my plan for my finances and how I want to organize it. Can you help me fill out these forms?
Okay. That sounds like a lot.
It's fun for me.
Clearly, that's why you're here. You're our expert. I like it. What tactical tips can you offer for allocating business budgets across different departments?
So again, it's just very specific to your model, because if you're a very small business, you might not really have a whole lot of departments. It's really just your budget, and you need what you need in different areas. If you're a little bit larger, if you're, we do a lot of sales, but we are considered a marketing company. We have to spend a lot of budget on marketing just to get those people to make the sales. And then the actual day-to-day operations is very, very low cost. So when you're making your budget, you kind of pull from air in the beginning, and you say, this is how much I'm going to spend in these different categories. Then you have to go back and track it and say, how did we do? What was the variance on our budget? And if you have real people in that finance department, they might be doing budget and variance reports for you, but that's just it. How much did we vary from what we said we were going to spend? And maybe in the end, it nets out to be even. You spent a little less over here, a little more over there, but it still worked out. Exactly. But maybe you didn't, and you find out after you have real expenses, well, we still have to travel, and I can't control airline costs. So I know that even though I set this budget, I have to spend X amount of dollars in this category. I'm going to have to pull from a different category that maybe I can have more flexibility with.
So what happens if you do it and it's completely off?
Well, you're SOL there. Just kidding. You'll figure it out. It might be completely off, and then you might have to rerun it, and you might have to look and see what's really important. What do I absolutely need? Or be creative and, okay, how can I make it work? What else can I do? How can I figure out a way to get more budget to be able to meet these costs?
As we always say, right, there's only really 2 ways to go about this. 1, you're going to make more money, or 2, you're going to save money. So we always look at those 2 different things when we're going through our budgets together, of basically saying, what categories can we cut right now where it's not going to really hurt us? Or maybe there's subscriptions. We'll always go through that. Like once or twice a year, you'll be like, hey, everyone go through these subscriptions. Are you actually using these, right? And everyone will be like, oh, I signed up for that. And you're like, are you kidding me? But it's true. So let's say it is possibly a larger company where there are department heads. How much responsibility do you put on them versus you giving them that and saying, come back to me with your cuts? Do you want them to be running all their stuff, or it's more you run it, show it to them, get it approved or denied by them?
If you have employees, I think it's if you're trusting them with company credit cards, definitely have very strong budgets, be watching them very closely, watching those charges. If you have contractors, it's more just like, okay, the company's allocated X amount of dollars that we have to work with. Can you do that? And they're going to come back to you and say, I need however much money. But if you should be watching it closely, anytime there's people with credit cards, they, like you said, they're going to sign up for subscriptions and have automatic charges and reoccurring things that you might not be aware of. So the more that you can be on top of that, the better.
Yeah.
I would say credit card statements, they come out monthly. That's about how often you enter it into your QuickBooks account, and then you can categorize it from there. So at least monthly, you should be looking into those.
Okay. How should a business owner be tracking all of this? Do you use any specific platforms?
I love QuickBooks Online.
Okay.
That's my favorite. It's very user-friendly, and their support chat features are amazing. There's tons of tutorials on YouTube, and just Google anything and it can tell you how to figure it out.
Okay.
So if you want like a real system, that would definitely be worth the investment. Just reporting analytics, just kind of figuring out where we're at, just a weekly check-in. Excel spreadsheets are great for that. You can load in all your data. You can make little charts on it. Very easy. It's free. You can share access with everybody.
Okay. When it comes to youth, being a power in business, do you see younger people being more responsible with money or less responsible?
I think that it is different. So traditionally, people have their 9-to-5 job. They have their pension plan, their 401k. They work, they save, and they retire. But now times are different. You can't do that now. So I think that youth are very capable and very creative. And instead of saying, I'm going to work and then save some money so that someday I can get what I want, they say, what do I want? And how am I going to make it happen? They just figure it out. And it's not, I'm going to save up and wait someday. It's
just do it.
We're going to do it. Yeah. I need money. I'm going to get money.
Okay.
And if I have money, cool. Then I can spend money.
I feel like that's actually pretty true. Now, when I think about most of my friends, even my business owner friends, it's like, okay, I want something, I'm going for it, right? And they're not thinking necessarily about how can I save as much money as possible to one day be able to do this stuff. They just do stuff when they want to do it. We do live in a more automatic world.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Is there any correlation between how you were raised? Because I know we're raised the same, but I always say that every kid was raised with different parents, even if it's the same parents. So any way that you were raised that you think affects the way that you look at and deal with money now?
Specifically me, I think more not how I was raised, but my birth order. I think being the oldest, being a rule follower, you're supposed to save, you're supposed to follow the rules. And the rules have kind of gone out the window. Everything about traditional finance is no more. People aren't even, investing is not what it used to be.
Right.
It's very different now. But I think
how is a rule follower doing in a no rules world? Are you
It's
surviving?
a struggle for us out there. No, it is. I create my own rules. I live in my own budget. But like anything else, you may do exactly as you were taught or as was modeled for you by your parents.
Yeah.
But you might also go hardcore the other way and do the exact opposite because you didn't like what was modeled or how it was modeled.
Hey there, are you tired of being an average Joe? The Young Boss Podcast is here to help you shake things up and grab your career by the horns. So hit that subscribe button and let's get things started. Now, back to the show. So we were raised with an entrepreneurial father who had high highs and low lows. Did that make you want stability in life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I went into teaching, because I knew it was not a well-paying job, but I knew that it was needed. I knew there was job security. I knew that I didn't even have to work nights and weekends. I got all my major holidays off. It was a system that I was comfortable with.
Okay.
So I was willing to take that, risk. The greater the risk, the greater the reward. I said, you know what? I would rather have the stability. I will take less pay to know that it's going to be consistent.
Wow. I didn't know that. I don't mind ups and downs at all.
Because you're the crazy one.
No, I just think it is so interesting because also our other brother, tells a story, a famous story that he always says about how he views money, where when my dad was going through a harder time, that he went to mom and he said, can I get Coke and Mentos? Because I want to do that experiment where you put the Mentos in and it blows up. And she was like, we don't have money for frivolous things. And that phrase affected him for the rest of his life. Like he was like, would wear socks till there was holes in them. He never wanted to buy new clothes. He was like, we are poor. And we were like, going shopping at Limited 2 and Hollister and buying whatever we wanted, living our best life. And he was being raised in the same household thinking we had no money.
Yeah.
So it is pretty crazy.
It is. And my own daughter does that to me. She had a friend that was going to, I don't know, the Bahamas, was it?
Yes.
And it was spring break or something. I don't think it was a break. It was like during school days.
Yeah.
And she said, well, she's going to the Bahamas. Why can't we? And I was like, she goes, I told all my friends we were poor. And I'm like, no, it's not about that. I don't have time for that. I don't want to do that. I have other things that I'm working towards and wanting to do with my time.
Yeah.
I don't want to take your whiny behinds to the beach and have you complain and not appreciate it. I'll go to the Bahamas by myself. But it wasn't about money. But in her mind,
it was money.
And she's telling all of her friends, like, we can't afford that. I'm like, when did you ever hear that?
Kids are great. I love it. How frequently should financial check-ins occur? How often do you need to really bring everybody back to reality?
Oh, often. You're doing weekly meetings. You should have your check-ins there, and it kind of alerts you to, are there any areas that are off track?
Yeah.
And then monthly, as you get those credit card statements, you enter it into QuickBooks. You can print out those reports and see, how are we doing? Are we in the red? Are we in the black? Are we doing well? Are we following where we're supposed to be? So at least monthly is a big one. Quarterly, you can do a review with everybody and just kind of, hey, raise the flag, or again, business trends, looking into where should we be right now? Where is the world right now? But I think monthly is a good standard.
Baseline.
Definite.
That definitely makes sense for teams that are larger, like our teams. For smaller business owners who maybe it's just them and they're working with a CPA or a really small team, how often should they be asking for, these reports? Same thing? Is it monthly?
No. I would say if it's an accountant, it's a lot on you as the individual. You have to go to the accountant and say, here's all my stuff. What else do you need? I have to ping my accountant regularly. It's like, I uploaded my stuff. Are you ready? Do you have it? Do you have my numbers? They have so many other clients that they're dealing with. It is a lot more on you as the individual. So I would say you have to be aware of those timelines that they need these things.
Yeah.
You need time to get it ready. Set that timeline back a little bit, get it prepared for them, send it over. But you're now at the mercy of somebody else's schedule and their workload.
Yeah. Which is tricky. And that's what makes it easier having someone in-house instead of having someone, else. But basically staying on them is going to be the biggest thing, and making sure you give them everything that you need to so that they can run those things. Yeah. How do you effectively cut budgets without destroying culture?
Part of me wants to say, that's not my job.
Okay, fair.
We all have our different skills.
Fair,
and
yeah.
Oftentimes finance is viewed as doom and gloom. But it is true. Like, we all have our strengths. We all have our skill sets. And really my job is to protect the company and to keep us within budget. And so it's my job to say, hey guys, we're not on track. And then it's somebody else's skill set to say, okay, you get the raw and you rally everybody together and you figure out a way to make it work. But also with that, my specific department, I also have HR, and HR is twofold. There's the part that's, protecting the company against bad hires and any kind of liability. Mm-hmm. But there's also that person who's supposed to be the emotional support, the person that people can talk to, a confidant, somebody people can talk about issues that they may be having or feelings about things. Gary Vee calls it the CHO, the Chief Heart Officer.
Oh, cute.
And so that person is really responsible for those emotional paychecks. And I know you've talked about that before on your podcast, finding what that person values.
Yeah.
So if it all depends on their own personal money script, how do they view and talk about money if they're told, like our brother, well, we can't afford that right now. Is that comment enough to just make them feel terrible? Or does that fire them up to say, okay, we're going to make it happen. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. That is really interesting. And I agree with you that in a sense, the beautiful thing is I know you are very happy and positive, and everyone listening is going to be like, she's so positive. What are you talking about? She's like a no lady. But she is a no lady. And that is actually why we work so well together, because I'm definitely more of a yes woman, a yes man, right? I will always try to push for the yes. And I appreciate that. And I think that you are perfect for your role because your natural skill is to be more analytical, be more, first answer is no, we can't do that. And then you think about it, then you run the numbers, then you're like, okay, maybe we can. If I was in finance, I'd be like giving everybody their budgets to do everything and we would be out of money. So thank God that you are where you are. What would the top tips be when it comes to saving money in a business environment?
Number one, I would say, make changes that matter. So we talked about, going through your subscriptions. Like, yes, that's a good practice, but saving 99 cents once a month is not going to help you in the grand scheme. So you really have to look at what changes can you make that won't hurt your business and won't affect your product or your output, but will actually move the needle money-wise. So making changes that matter. I think processes, having those systems in place, and that way you can identify really easily what is or isn't working, and having those different points of failure potentially, or systems that you're using. And maybe if you systematize it, you could find ways to do it faster, better, automate it, things like that. And lastly, I would say paying for speed is definitely worth it. So we all have different skill sets, and there's times when just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it. Your time might be better spent doing something else. So as the business owner, you need to go dream and you need to go create that product and get the people in the door, and let people like me, who are very happy to be behind the scenes and will love to crunch the numbers and look at all the details, find those things for you, bring it to you. You don't have to be the one to remember to talk to the CPA. I can crunch the numbers, put my little reminder on, and then tell you, hey, remember, so using your tribe, but paying for speed and having somebody else paying them might help you free up your time to be able to do other things that would make you more money in the end.
Yeah, I love that. I think those are all three really great tactical tips right there. How should bonuses be structured in a business that will really motivate people but not lead to entitlement?
That's a tricky one. I think tying it to something specific, some specific goal and output, letting them know ahead of time. If it's performance-based, say ahead of time, this quarter, this month, this week, I want you to work on a very specific thing. If you are able to sell 5 units today, you will get an extra $100. Like, have it be very, very clearly tied to something so that you can go back and look and say, did they or didn't they earn this?
Yeah.
But also, there's companies who, especially big ones, they just have an annual increase. It might just be keeping up with inflation. It's just written into their contract. Every year, you get a 2% increase. Or at the end of the year, we look at the profit and it gets split up amongst everybody, however much. So I think the biggest thing to avoid the entitlement is making it very clear to them how and when they will receive this bonus.
Yeah, very objective instead of subjective, right? Like, it's not based on a whim. It's not based on, I feel like you did amazing this last quarter. It's like, did you hit the goal? Did you go above and beyond the goal? We agreed that this is what you were going to get. And
I think those other things, the above and beyond and the appreciation, is more of a gift. So very clearly saying this is a compensation bonus, and saying this is a gift that I want to bless you with because, and still attach something to it. Don't just willy-nilly throw money around, but say, because you did this, I wanted to show my appreciation. And sometimes it's not just money. It's something nice. It's a tangible thing. It could be tickets to a game. It could be a bouquet of flowers or just a handwritten card. It means just as much to them as a check sometimes.
We talk about on the podcast failures that we've made in business. Has there been any moments where you're like, yep, I learned this because I really messed up and failed in other places?
I mean, I'm very hard on myself. So I feel like anytime something doesn't work out well or go right, I feel like I failed or it was because of something I could have done better. I think the scariest part as a business owner is when you get to that point where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm on budget. We don't have the money, or I don't know if I can pay this credit card bill right now. And you're trying to figure it out and you're frantic. But sometimes in those moments, that's when you create those processes to help you figure it out. And those hard times are what keeps you on track. And I think definitely failure would be not being able to pay a credit card bill, but also is what helped us through sometimes of finding where were we spending money incorrectly and how do we need to make these changes.
Yeah. It gives you that big red flag to say, you're either going to look at this or it's going to eat you alive. So you need to just look at it and take care of it. And it does suck. I think sometimes it does suck when things start to get tight, things start to slip through the cracks. And then you're like, oh my God, how did that even happen? But you can't spend the same in a market where you're doing amazing that you can in a market where maybe things are tough. And in the beginning, a lot of times things are tough and they are tight. And it's not a time to be spending frivolously. It is watching every dollar and where is it going? And okay, we invested in this event or this ad. Did it bring us profit? And if it didn't, we're not doing it again. Versus sometimes, when business is going good, we'll say, let's try it one more time. Let's try it one more time, right? Because we have the flexibility to test more. When things are tighter, you can't test as much.
That's right.
So that can be really tough. I know with us, we run a family business. And so there's always been questions about transparency. How much should you share? How much should you withhold? Who should know what's going on financially? Give us some insight on that.
Yeah, that one's again a tough one because with a family business, we run it kind of like we were raised with our parents. So oftentimes I think entrepreneurs, business owners, they view it's their money. It's their business is just the same as their personal. So it's like, I don't need to tell you how much is in the bank. You just need to know, like, are you doing well in your respect or not?
Yeah.
So I think part of it is company culture. Do you have a super open, like we just talk about these things, or is it more just the business owner keeps that to themselves?
Yeah.
And part of that is their own upbringing and their money scripts. I said that a few times. It's like how somebody views money, whether it's, that's their personal burden to bear and everyone else, it's their job to just motivate them to do their responsibility. And you look at the process and you say, okay, if we're not hitting it, I need to go look at the symptom. Or is it something that we say, okay, guys, we need to rally around this together. We're not staying in budget. I think it really truly is each individual business owner is going to handle that conversation differently.
Yeah. We recently talked about this with our team because our dad was very much, even if the ship was sinking, he'd be like, we're okay. I'm going to guide us to shore and everything's going to be good. So we were running the business that way for a long time. And then when things would go bad, we'd be like, hey guys, things are bad. Why aren't you freaking out? And they're like, we didn't know things were bad. You've been telling us things are amazing. So we really learned the transparency lesson of saying, okay, pause. We as humans, this is how we view money, that we're going to tell the kids, the people in the business, whoever it is, things are okay because it's our burden to bear, not theirs. But then they were like kind of urging us to let us in, let us help you carry that weight. And I think in a marriage, I think with kids, I think all sorts of, in a business, sometimes you do that even in your partnership where you're like, I'll just carry all the weight. They don't need to know everything. I'll take care of it all. But it really helps you actually grow closer together because when we did open the door and say, hey, these are the things we're struggling with, they all got on it and said, okay, here's where we can cut. Here's how we can make more money. Here's how I can help. And if we didn't ask them, if we weren't transparent, we wouldn't have gotten that help and support from them. We thought we were protecting them. Yeah. And
well, as the finance person, it's like, if we're not doing well, I'm thinking I failed.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go to the team and say, hey guys, I suck at my job because we don't have any money. And not that it was like that, but I'm not a creative person and they are more creative and they could think of things or see things from a different perspective and they could help us problem solve and come up with new ways to either save money or make more money that I wasn't thinking of. So I just had to come to the team and say, this is where we're at, not trying to scare them or saying, bad job. It's just,
this is reality.
A report.
Yeah. Versus I know other companies who have numbers on the wall and everyone's staring at it all day long. Everyone knows exactly where they're at. Dollar, your head equals $1. And that's not our culture. And if that is your culture, that's how some people run their businesses. That's okay, I guess. Everyone does it differently, right? And so we want our people to not be as focused on that. We want them more focused on the job. And I truly believe if you have happy employees, you'll have happy customers because your employees it trickles down to them. That's who's touching them. And so when they're happy, when they love their job, they do a great job for the clients. So we always try to keep them as motivated and happy as possible, and not thinking that, oh, you had a bad week, you're out. It's not like that. But other companies, they do run like that. And if you have a tighter ship, you have a tighter ship. So
well, and even if you're not transparent, they sense that. They sense the stress, and you're going to be not so nice to them and your employees, and then your employees will feel a type of way, and that will then go down to the customers. So, just being open about it can hopefully avoid a lot of those negative feelings, even though it's subconscious.
Yep, I agree. So when a business owner is, going along their path, and maybe they're coming up to a project or a situation where they don't have the capital to get started, how do they know when is it time to start looking at borrowing money, and what are good places to go?
Great question. So I think that one of the things that is so misunderstood, or people don't have a good understanding of because they were not taught it, is debt management and credit, and how you can use both of those things to your advantage. There is money out there. You don't have to use your own money to start your business. You don't have to use your own money to continue your business. You can use other people's money, and you can use debt to build your credit. The things that you have to be very careful about, and I wish that there was more education out there on, or people at least informing people of, is how scary and how bad it can go quickly if you're not aware of the fine print, basically. Yeah. So credit card debt is like the one thing that you want to avoid at all costs, because it's the most expensive debt. The interest rates are like 30% if you don't pay off your bill. But if you don't know that, you're just thinking, okay, I've got a bill over here and a bill over there. Again, making those biggest changes possible, getting down your credit card debt. But if you can go to a bank and get a business loan, usually you just have to prove, like, what is your plan? Again, it's like Shark Tank. You're going and showing them, this is my plan. This is how much money I need. This is how I'm going to spend it. Then they'll say yes or no. They'll tell you an interest rate. So the whole goal there is to just figure out, is this money going to help me make more money in order to pay enough that I can pay that loan back, but also cover the interest on what I'm paying.
What are some things that business owners typically take money out for?
Ooh, could be anything.
Yeah, new product.
Yeah,
research and development.
And it could be that, I just don't want to tie up. I want to keep my savings. So in order to pay these bills, I know how much money I need to cover those costs. So maybe you just have big bills due, or you have expenses, or you need to make repairs, you need to buy more products, you need to pay off your debts, whatever it might be, paying your staff. People have taken out loans to pay their staff because the money's not coming in. But if you retain your savings, you know that you immediately get the money, you pay off your staff. You have your savings to be able to pay off that loan that you needed to make those payments. And as long as you just had to do a little bit of math to see, does it make sense? But it also is tied to you as a credit score. So making sure you don't have bad debts, making sure that you're making payments on time, and having the right amount of things in your name that are helpful and not harmful will help you get better interest rates and more access to capital. Okay.
What are some of your favorite financial tools that business owners should be using?
I love QuickBooks Online. I've talked about it already. They're great. It's amazing. And I really was resistant at first. I was like, I can just do this myself. I can do Excel. Excel is great. Spreadsheets are great for reports and things here and there, tracking, whatever. But QuickBooks Online, and I keep saying online because there is a QuickBooks for a desktop version, and I did use it. And I don't know if people have told you before, QuickBooks is really hard. Well, QuickBooks Desktop it's a whole software. Quicken, it's a whole thing, and it's not easy. But QuickBooks Online is amazing. You can also just send an email to your accountant, and they can go in and do it all for you. They can do the reports, they can reconcile your cards. So if you don't know how to do all the things, it's okay, because your accountant can help you. And you just download your stuff. It's like the finance version of sorting your M&Ms by color. You just pick which category does it go into, and it spits out a beautiful report. So QuickBooks Online is the number one. Some people who either want free services or more specifically tailored to their industry, you can use a program called Xero with an X. You can use ZipBooks. There's a program called Stessa, a software called Stessa. But yeah.
Lots of tools.
Lots.
Okay, close us out with, what is the biggest money mistake that a business owner can make?
Not knowing. Not tracking, not knowing, thinking we're doing fine. Don't rely on your mental accounting. You have to look at this. You have to know. And a lot of business owners actually do care about this. You know, they might not be good about the organization and the details of it, but they know exactly how much money is in their bank account. They watch that like a hawk. It's their money. That's the whole point of their business, is to make more money. So I think just knowing, but not relying on the mental accounting. Actually track it. Actually know how much capital you have available to you, how much money you owe other people, and how much money other people owe you.
Love it. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. We had our expert in the house, and I learned a lot, so I think it was awesome. Thanks for listening to another episode of Young Boss with your host, Isabel Garino. Be sure to like, share, and follow on Instagram and TikTok. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and let us know, are you looking to hire a simple CFO? We'll see you next time.